3 weeks after the battle, Earth looked like it was celebrating. Cities held parades. Politicians gave speeches about humanity's great victory. Children played with toy spaceships, acting out the battle in their yards. But in the military bases and shipyards, there was no celebration. There was only work. The Solar Defense Fleet had lost 18 capital ships and 67 destroyers. Over 12,000 crew members had died, each one leaving behind families and friends. Memorial services were held every day, and they would continue for months. Admiral Dae-hyun attended as many as he could. He looked into the eyes of mothers who had lost sons, husbands who had lost wives, children who would grow up without parents. He shook hands and said words that felt hollow and meaningless. Your loved one died a hero. Their sacrifice saved Earth. We will never forget them. The families were always polite, always grateful, but Dae-hyun could see the pain behind their eyes. No words could bring back the dead. No medals could fill the empty chairs at dinner tables. One mother, her eyes red from crying, grabbed Dae-hyun's hand tightly. Tell me it was worth it, she said. Tell me my son didn't die for nothing. Dae-hyun looked at her honestly. Your son saved billions of lives, including mine, including yours. I wish he didn't have to, but yes, it was worth it. The mother nodded and walked away. Dae-hyun hoped he had given her some comfort, but he doubted it. There was no comfort in death, only the cold truth that it was necessary. In a laboratory deep underground, Dr. Bora was taking apart Vorath technology, studying how their ships and weapons worked. What she found surprised her. Commander Tae-yang, she called across the lab. Come look at this. Tae-yang walked over, looking at the alien device on her workbench. What am I seeing? This is their primary weapon system. It's powerful, but it's not revolutionary. In fact, our plasma railguns are more advanced. She pulled up data on her computer. I've been comparing all their technology to ours. They're not superior. In some areas, they're actually behind us, Tae-yang frowned. That doesn't make sense. They've conquered 47 worlds. How could they do that with inferior technology? I wondered the same thing. So I accessed their database. She opened a file showing information about the Vorath's previous conquests. Look at this. Every world they conquered was pre-industrial. Most of them were still using primitive weapons, some even just swords and arrows. The Vorath have been bullying the weak for decades. So they've never faced a real military power before? Never. We were supposed to be conquest number 48. Another easy target. Bora laughed bitterly. Instead, they ran into a species that builds weapons for fun and has been fighting wars since the dawn of civilization. They picked the wrong planet. Tae-yang took this information straight to Admiral Dae-hyun. The implications were enormous. So they weren't unstoppable conquerors, Dae-hyun said, reading the report. They were cowards who only attacked those weaker than themselves. Yes, sir. And there's more. I've been decoding their databases. The Vorath Empire is actually relatively small, maybe 50 worlds. They're not the massive galactic power we thought. They're just good at seeming scary. Dae-hyun leaned back in his chair, thinking. An idea was forming, a dangerous idea, but one that might secure Earth's future. Commander, we captured their FTL communication system, correct? Yes, sir. It's damaged but repairable. Repair it. I want to send a message to the Vorath Empire. Captain Hyejin was promoted to admiral after the battle. She now commanded the entire Solar Defense Fleet, a position she had never wanted but couldn't refuse. Her first task was to oversee the construction of new ships to replace those lost. But she was also dealing with something more difficult, the morale of her crews. Many of them were struggling with what they had been ordered to do. Executing surrendering enemies went against everything they had been taught about honor and warfare. Hyejin called a meeting of all her ship captains. They gathered in a conference room on the Indomitable, these men and women who had followed terrible orders because they believed it was necessary. I know what you're feeling, Hyejin said. I feel it too. We did things in that battle that will haunt us forever, but I want you to understand why it was necessary. She pulled up intelligence reports on a screen. The Vorath Empire is still out there. If even one ship had escaped, they would know where Earth is. They would know we're strong. And they would come back, not with 300 ships, but with 3,000. They would bring their entire military force, everything they have, because we would have humiliated them. One captain raised his hand. But what about next time? What if another alien race comes? Will we have to make the same choice again? I hope not, Hyejin said honestly. But if it comes to choosing between human morality and human survival, I will choose survival every time, and I'll carry that burden so our children don't have to. Lieutenant Jiwoo received a medal for valor, presented by Earth's president in a ceremony broadcast around the world. He stood on stage wearing his dress uniform while thousands of people cheered, but he felt nothing. The medal was just a piece of metal. It didn't bring back the 4 pilots he had lost. It didn't erase the memory of that Vorath destroyer begging for mercy. After the ceremony, he went to visit the families of his fallen squadron members. He told them stories about their loved ones, about how brave they were, how skilled. He tried to give them something to hold on to. One pilot's younger sister, maybe 10 years old, looked at Jiwoo with innocent eyes. "Did they die, heroes?" she asked. Jiwoo knelt down to her level. "Yes, your brother was the best pilot I ever flew with." "He saved a lot of people. Will you keep them safe?" the girl asked. "Will you protect Earth like my brother did?" Jiwoo felt tears threatening but held them back. "Yes, I promise." It was a promise he intended to keep even if it cost him his soul. Meanwhile, Commander Tae-yang and Dr. Bo-Ra worked together to repair the Vorath communication system. It took 2 weeks, but finally they had it working. Admiral Dae-hun stood in front of a camera, preparing to record a message that would be sent across space to the Vorath Empire. He had thought carefully about what to say, how to walk the line between warning and threatening, between showing strength and offering peace. "This is Admiral Dae-hyun of Earth's Solar Defense Fleet," he began. "Your invasion force came to our world expecting an easy conquest. You believed we were primitive, weak, defenseless. You were wrong." He pulled up footage of the battle showing the destruction of the Vorath fleet. "Your armada was destroyed. Every ship, every warrior. They underestimated humanity, and it cost them everything." He paused, letting that sink in. "But we are not monsters. We did what was necessary to protect our home. We include with this message a transmission from your sub-commander Velrax recorded before his death. He tried to warn you. He understood what we are." The message played, Velrax's warning, cut short by his execution. "Humans are not prey. They are predators," Dae-hyun continued. "We do not want war with your empire. We do not seek conquest or destruction. We only want to be left alone. Come to Earth in peace and we will welcome you as friends. Trade with us, share knowledge, build a better future together." His expression hardened. "But if you come as enemies, if you threaten our world again, we will destroy you. Completely, without mercy. Your fleet came to conquer Earth. They didn't even reach Mars, remember that." The message ended. Tae-yang prepared it for transmission through the Vorath communication network. "Once we send this, there's no taking it back," Tae-yang said. "The entire Vorath Empire will know about us." "Good," Dae-hyun replied. "Let them know. Let them debate and argue and decide what to do. And while they're deciding, we'll be building more ships, better weapons, stronger defenses. Next time, if there is a next time, we'll be even more ready." The message was sent, traveling faster than light across the galaxy. In the Vorath capital, it would arrive in weeks. What they would do with it, no one knew. But Earth was no longer hiding. Earth was no longer afraid. Admiral Dae-hyun retired 6 months after the battle. He had done his duty, made his terrible choices, and carried his burden. Now it was time to let younger people defend humanity's future. In his retirement speech, he said only a few words. "We are not conquerors. We are not monsters, but we will never be victims. Remember what we learned. Stay ready, stay strong, and never forget the price of peace." The galaxy had been warned. Earth was protected. And humanity, for better or worse, had announced itself as a power that would not be pushed around. The stars still held mysteries and dangers. But now, when aliens looked toward Earth, they would think twice before deciding to visit. Because they had learned an important lesson. Humans make terrible prey, but excellent predators. The stars had never seemed so threatening. Admiral Dae-hyun stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display before him. Red dots filled the screen, hundreds of them, all moving toward Earth. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment humanity had feared for decades. "Sir, we're getting more data from Pluto Station," said Commander Tae-yang, walking quickly across the room. His face was pale. "The numbers are worse than we thought. Over 300 ships. All of them big, all of them armed." Dae-hyun nodded slowly. He had expected this, but hearing the confirmation still felt like a punch to the gut. "How long until they reach the asteroid belt?" 72 hours, sir. Maybe less if they increase speed. 72 hours. 3 days. That was all the time Earth had before everything changed forever. The command center buzzed with activity. Officers ran from station to station. Screens showed data streaming in from every corner of the solar system. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was afraid, but they did their jobs anyway. That was what made them human. "Play the transmission again," Daehyun ordered. The room fell silent. A massive alien face appeared on the main screen. It was reptilian, with dark scales and yellow eyes that seemed to look right through them. When it spoke, the translation software turned its words into something humans could understand. "Primitive beings of the third planet," the alien said. Its voice was cold and filled with contempt. "I am Supreme Commander Krexith of the Vorath Empire. We have traveled across the stars to claim your world. You are not the first species we have conquered. You will not be the last. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will make you suffer beyond imagination. You have 3 of your days to decide. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Daehyun had watched this message a dozen times already. Each time the alien's arrogance made his blood boil. The Vorath thought humans were helpless. They thought Earth would fall without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Send word to all fleet commanders," Daehyun said. "Operation Guardian starts now. Everyone moves to their positions, no delays. No mistakes." Across the solar system, humanity's military machine came to life. Ships that had been hidden in orbital stations powered up their engines. Crews that had trained for years raced to their battle stations. Weapons that had been built in secret were loaded and made ready. On the flagship Indomitable, Captain Hyejin walked through the corridors, checking on her crew. She was young for a capital ship commander, only 38, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Her crew loved her, and they would follow her into hell if she asked. "How are we doing?" she asked her weapons officer. Dr. Bo-Ra looked up from her console, adjusting her glasses. "The plasma railguns are charging perfectly. The quantum torpedoes are loaded. Everything is ready, Captain." "And the experimental weapons?" Bo-Ra hesitated. "They'll work. I'm sure of it, but we've never tested them in real combat before." Hyejin put a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll find out together. If your weapons are half as good as you say they are, we'll send these aliens running back where they came from." In the fighter bay, Lieutenant Ji-Woo was giving his squadron a final briefing. Ghost Squadron was the best of the best. 12 pilots who could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded. They would need every bit of that skill in the coming battle. "Listen up," Ji-Woo said, his voice carrying across the hangar. "These aliens think we're easy prey. They think our ships are slow and our weapons are weak. Let them think that. When the time comes, we'll show them what human pilots can really do." The pilots cheered. They were scared, but they didn't show it. Fear was natural. Courage was choosing to fight anyway. Meanwhile, on the Vorath flagship, Supreme Commander Krexith was celebrating. His officers stood around him laughing and drinking. They had conquered 47 worlds before this one. Earth would be no different. "How long until we reach their planet?" Krexith asked. 3 days, Supreme Commander," answered one of his officers. "Should we slow down and scan for defenses?" Krexith waved his hand dismissively. "Why bother? Look at their transmissions. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are chemical rockets and nuclear bombs. We have plasma weapons and shields that can stop anything they throw at us." War Priest Thulmar, a tall alien with ceremonial robes, stepped forward. "The gods have blessed this conquest, Supreme Commander. These humans are cattle, nothing more. We will take their world and add it to our empire's glory." In the back of the room, Sub-Commander Velrax frowned. He was studying the star charts, looking at the route they were taking to Earth. "Supreme Commander, there is something I must mention. The asteroid belt we must pass through. Oh, what about it?" Krexith interrupted. "It is dense with rocks and debris. Perfect terrain for an ambush. If the humans have any military sense at all, they will use it against us." Krexith laughed. "You worry too much, Velrax. These creatures barely have spaceflight. They certainly don't have the weapons or tactics to threaten us. We will pass through their asteroid belt, destroy any ships that dare to face us, and take their planet before the week is over." Velrax said nothing more, but his concern remained. He had been a warrior for many years, and his instincts told him something was wrong. The humans had not responded to the ultimatum. They had not begged for mercy or offered surrender. They had simply gone silent. That silence worried him more than any threat could have. Back on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the surface, Dae-hyun met with the planet's leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals from every nation sat around a table. For the first time in human history, Earth was truly united. "We have one chance at this," Dae-hyun said. "The asteroid belt will hide our fleet. The terrain will slow them down. And when they are deep enough, when they think they are safe, we will hit them with everything we have." "What if we fail?" asked one of the leaders. Dae-hyun's expression was grim. "Then we fight until the last ship, the last bullet, the last breath. But we will not surrender, never." The leaders nodded. There was nothing more to say. Humanity would stand or fall together. As the Vorath fleet moved closer and as human ships took their positions in the darkness of space, both sides prepared for the battle that would decide Earth's fate. The aliens came with confidence and arrogance. The humans waited with fear and determination. Neither side knew exactly what would happen, but in 72 hours the universe would find out just how dangerous humans could be when fighting for their survival. The trap was set. The prey had sharpened its teeth, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. The asteroid belt was silent and dark. Thousands of rocks floated through space, some as small as cars, others as large as cities. Hidden among them were the ships of humanity's solar defense fleet, waiting like predators in tall grass. Captain Hyejin sat in her command chair aboard the Indomitable, watching the scanner displays. Her ship was powered down to minimum, producing almost no heat or energy signature. To the Vorath sensors, she would look like just another piece of space debris. "They're entering the belt now," whispered her tactical officer, even though no one could hear them in the vacuum of space. Old habits died hard. On the main screen, the Vorath fleet appeared. 300 massive warships, their shields glowing with energy. Their weapons ports open and ready. They moved in a tight formation, confident and unafraid. They looked like an unstoppable wave of destruction. Hyejin felt her stomach tighten. Even knowing the plan, even trusting Admiral Dae-hyun's strategy, seeing that many enemy ships was terrifying. Each one of those vessels could destroy a city. Together they could crack a planet, but they had to come through the belt first. And that was their mistake. "All ships report ready, Captain," said her communications officer. "Admiral Dae-hyun is waiting for your signal." Hyejin took a deep breath. Her hand moved to the control panel. "Tell the Admiral we have a firing solution. Weapons are locked on target." Across the fleet the same message was being repeated. 150 human capital ships, all hidden, all ready, all aimed at the approaching enemy. Admiral Dae-hyun received the confirmations on his command ship. He looked at Commander Taeyang, who nodded. Everything was perfect. The Vorath were exactly where they needed to be. "All units," Dae-hyun said calmly into his microphone. "Drop stealth fields. Weapons free. Fire at will." Suddenly, the darkness of the asteroid belt came alive with light. Human ships appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems powering down, and in the same instant they fired. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space, moving faster than light itself. These weren't ordinary missiles. They could jump short distances through space-time, bypassing shields and armor. The Vorath had never seen anything like them. The first volley hit before the aliens could react. 23 Vorath ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Metal twisted and tore. Atmosphere vented into space. Thousands of alien warriors died in seconds. On the Vorath flagship, alarm screamed. Officers shouted in panic. Supreme Commander Krexith stared at his screens in shock and disbelief. "What happened?" he roared. "Where did they come from?" "Multiple contacts," an officer stammered. "Human ships everywhere. They were hiding. Another explosion rocked the flagship as a human torpedo struck the shields. The barriers held, but barely. "Return fire," Krexith ordered. "All ships attack formation. Show these primitives what real power looks like." The Vorath fleet responded with devastating force. Their plasma cannons fired, sending bolts of superheated energy toward the human ships. One hit the destroyer Valiant, punching through its shields and cutting the ship in half. 300 crew members died instantly. But the humans weren't running. They were fighting back with everything they had. Lieutenant Jiwoo led Ghost Squadron out of the Indomitable's fighter bay, 12 small ships against an armada. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, weaving between asteroids at speeds that would kill a normal pilot. "Stay tight," he called to his squadron. "Use the rocks for cover. Make them work for every shot." The Vorath had fighters too, larger and more heavily armed than the human ones. but they couldn't match human agility. Jiwoo's pilots danced through the asteroid field like it was their home, while the alien fighters struggled to keep up. "Target acquired," Jiwoo said, locking onto a Vorath carrier. "Go Squadron, follow my lead. Penetrator missiles on my mark." They dove toward the massive ship, defensive fire filling the space around them. One of Jiwoo's pilots took a hit and spiraled away, his ship damaged but still alive. The rest pressed on, mark. 12 missiles launched, each one designed to punch through armor and explode inside. They struck the carrier's hangar bay. The explosion started small, then grew as fuel and ammunition caught fire. Within seconds, the entire ship was tearing itself apart from the inside. "That's one less," Jiwoo said, pulling his fighter into a sharp turn to avoid the debris. "Let's find another." Back on the Indomitable, Dr. Bora was watching her weapons perform better than she had hoped. The plasma railguns fired metal slugs wrapped in superheated plasma. When they hit, they went through Vorath shields like they weren't even there. "It's working," she said, amazed. "The frequency modulation is penetrating their defenses." Captain Hyejin smiled grimly. "Then let's not waste the advantage. All guns, continuous fire. Target their capital ships." The Indomitable's weapons blazed and 2 Vorath cruisers exploded under the assault, but the enemy was returning fire just as hard. A plasma bolt struck the Indomitable's port side, tearing through armor and destroying 3 deck sections. Alarms rang as emergency bulkheads sealed, trapping some crew members but saving the rest of the ship. "Damage report," Hyejin called out. "Port weapons offline. Hull breach on decks 7 through 9. Casualties estimated at 40 crew members. 40 people dead. 40 families that would never see their loved ones again." Hyejin felt the weight of each loss, but she couldn't stop now. "Seal those sections. Redirect power to starboard weapons. Keep firing." In the chaos of battle, Subcommander Velrax tried to make sense of what was happening. His predictions had been right. This wasn't a primitive species with weak technology. The humans had been ready. They had planned this ambush perfectly. "Supreme Commander," Velrax said urgently, "we need to withdraw. Reform our fleet outside the asteroid belt where we have room to maneuver." Krexith turned on him, fury in his yellow eyes. "Withdraw?
We outnumber them 3-1.
We have superior technology. We will not run from cattle." "But sir, look at the casualty reports. We've already lost over 60 ships. Their weapons, Silence," War Priest Thulmar interrupted. "To retreat is to admit weakness. The gods demand we crush these insects beneath our feet." Velrax wanted to argue more, but he knew it was useless. Pride and religious fanaticism had made his commanders blind. They would rather die than admit they had underestimated their enemy, and die they would. Admiral Dae-hyun watched the battle unfold from his command center. The plan was working even better than expected. The asteroid field limited the Vorath's ability to use their numbers. Their ships kept bumping into rocks, their formations breaking apart, and every time they tried to organize, human ships would strike from a new direction. "Casualties?" he asked. 18 destroyers damaged or destroyed. The Valiant is gone, fighter losses at 15%. "But sir, we've destroyed over 80 enemy ships. They're losing 3 for every one of ours." Those were good numbers in a military sense, but Dae-hyun knew each loss represented real people, real lives. He had sent them here. He had given the orders that would kill them. It was a burden he would carry forever. "Phase 2, he said quietly. "Activate the mass drivers." Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden weapons came online. Massive magnetic accelerators built into the largest asteroids began to spin up. They had been placed there over years of secret construction. Now they would unleash hell. The Vorath fleet was about to learn that the battlefield itself was a weapon. The mass drivers fired. Asteroids, some weighing millions of tons, were launched at incredible speeds. They moved so fast they became blurs, accelerated by magnetic fields to a fraction of light speed. When something that big hits something that fast, shields and armor mean nothing. The first asteroid struck a Vorath battleship dead center. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, torn into atoms by the impact. The shockwave destroyed 2 more ships nearby. Then another asteroid hit. And another. And another. Supreme Commander Krexith watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships that had conquered worlds were being smashed like toys. His screen showed red everywhere, casualty reports flooding in faster than his officers could read them. "Evasive maneuvers," he screamed. "All ships scatter formation." But it was too late. The Vorath fleet was packed too tightly in the asteroid field. They couldn't move fast enough. Couldn't dodge. The rocks came from all directions and there was nowhere to hide. In 5 minutes, 40 more ships were destroyed. Thousands more Vorath warriors died, vaporized or crushed or thrown into the cold of space. "This is impossible," Krexith muttered, his hands shaking. "This can't be happening. They're primitives. They're nothing." Sub-Commander Velrax grabbed his commander's shoulder. "Sir, please." "We must retreat now. While we still have ships left," Krexith shoved him away. "No, we will regroup. We will attack. We will An asteroid the size of a mountain crashed into a cruiser just 300 meters from the flagship. The explosion sent debris flying. One piece, a jagged chunk of metal, spun through space and tore through the flagship's communication array. "We've lost long-range communications," an officer reported. "We can't contact the Empire. We can't call for reinforcements," Velrax finally understood. The humans hadn't just planned an ambush. They had planned to make sure no one could escape to tell what happened here. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. He had to try one more time. Velrax moved to a secondary communication station and began recording a message. His fingers flew across the controls as he spoke quietly into the recorder. "This is Sub-Commander Velrax of the Vorath Third Fleet. If anyone receives this, you must hear the truth. The humans are not primitives. They are warriors. They are predators. Do not come to Earth. Do not err." War Priest Thulmar appeared behind him, plasma pistol in hand. "Traitor," he hissed, the weapon fired. Velrax fell, his message only half sent, his warning incomplete. But Commander Taeyang aboard his intelligence ship had been scanning all Vorath frequencies. He caught the transmission, recorded it, saved it. It would be useful later. Captain Hyjin brought the Indomitable around for another attack run. Her ship had taken more damage, but it was still fighting. Around her, the human fleet was performing perfectly, each ship following the battle plan exactly. "Dr. Bo-Ra," Hyjin called. "Deploy the quantum disruption mines." Bo-Ra hesitated. These weapons were experimental, barely tested. They could work perfectly or they could malfunction and destroy the Indomitable itself. But looking at the tactical display, seeing how many Vorath ships were still out there, she knew they had no choice. "Miles away," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Hundreds of small devices shot out from the Indomitable and the other human capital ships. They looked harmless, just tiny spheres floating in space. The Vorath ignored them, focusing on the larger threats. That was their final mistake. The mines activated. Each one created a quantum disruption field, a bubble of unstable physics that made matter tear itself apart at the molecular level. The fields were small, only a few meters across, but they didn't need to be big. A Vorath destroyer passed near one mine. The field touched the ship's reactor. The reactor, which contained enough energy to power a city, became unstable. In 3 seconds, the ship exploded from the inside out. Then another ship's reactor went critical. Then another. Then 5 more at once. The Vorath fleet began to implode. Ships that survived the asteroids and the torpedoes were now being destroyed by their own power sources. Captains screamed orders to shut down reactors, but it was too late. The quantum fields were spreading, one mine triggering a ship's death. The explosion pushing other ships into other mines. It was a cascade of destruction, beautiful and terrible. Lieutenant Jiwoo and Ghost Squadron watched from a safe distance, their fighters running low on fuel and ammunition. They had lost 4 pilots in the battle, good people who would never go home. But they had done their job. The Vorath carrier group was destroyed, and without carrier support, the enemy fleet was crippled. "Ghost Leader to Indomitable," Jiwoo said into his radio. "We're Winchester on missiles. Returning to base for rearm and refuel." "Negative, Ghost Leader," came Hyjin's response. "We need you for one more mission. The Vorath flagship is still active. We're going to finish this." Jiwoo looked at his fuel gauge. It was nearly empty, but he didn't hesitate. "Copy that, Captain. Ghost Squadron, form up. We've got one last target." The 8 remaining fighters of Ghost Squadron turned toward the massive Vorath flagship. It was the biggest ship in the alien fleet, bristling with weapons protected by the strongest shields. Attacking it directly was suicide, so they would attack it indirectly. "Listen up," Jiwoo said to his pilots. "We're not going for the ship itself. We're going for the reactor exhaust port. It's small, about 2 meters wide, but if we can get a missile in there, we can crack that ship open from the inside." One of his pilots laughed nervously. "That's impossible, sir." "Yeah," Jiwoo agreed. But we're going to do it anyway, because that's what humans do. We do the impossible. They dove toward the flagship at full speed. Defensive fire filled the space around them. One fighter took a direct hit and exploded. Another lost control and spiraled away. But the remaining 6 kept going, flying through a storm of plasma bolts and laser fire. Jiwoo's targeting computer locked onto the exhaust port. It was tiny, a pinpoint target. At this speed and this chaos, hitting it was almost impossible. Almost. Missile away, Jiwoo said calmly. The penetrator missile shot forward, guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any living mind. It dodged one plasma bolt, then another, making micro-adjustments as it flew. The exhaust port grew larger in its sensors. 50 meters, 20 meters, 10. The missile entered the port and traveled deep into the ship before detonating. The explosion started small, in the reactor control room, but it spread quickly, racing through the ship's power conduits, overwhelming safety systems. The Vorath flagship's reactor went into overload. Supreme Commander Krexith had just enough time to realize what was happening before his ship turned into a miniature sun. The explosion was visible from Earth, a bright flash in the night sky. The flagship and everything in a kilometer around it was vaporized instantly. Hundreds more Vorath ships were damaged or destroyed by the shockwave. When the light faded, less than 40 Vorath ships remained out of the 300 that had entered the belt. Admiral Dae-hyun looked at the tactical display and felt no joy. Only relief that it was almost over. All ships pursue the survivors. Do not let any ship escape to jump distance. No survivors, it was a terrible order to give, but it was necessary. If even one ship made it back to the Vorath Empire, if they reported what happened here, the aliens would return with 10 times the force. Earth couldn't survive that, so there could be no witnesses. No survivors. No mercy, the human fleet began the hunt. The surviving Vorath ships fled in every direction, their formation completely broken. Some headed toward Jupiter. Others tried to reach Saturn. A few made desperate runs toward the outer solar system, hoping to escape into deep space. But the human fleet was faster, and they knew every rock, every orbital path, every hiding place in the solar system. This was their home. The aliens were just lost invaders. Lieutenant Jiwoo's fuel tank was almost empty, but he pushed his fighter forward anyway. Ahead of him, a damaged Vorath destroyer limped toward Jupiter's orbit, its engines sputtering. "Ghost leader to target," Jiwoo said into his radio. "I have visual on enemy destroyer. Requesting permission to engage." There was a pause. Then Admiral Dae-hyun's voice came through, heavy with the weight of what he was ordering. "Permission granted." "No survivors, Lieutenant." Jiwoo tightened his grip on the controls. Through his cockpit window, he could see the Vorath ship more clearly now. It was badly damaged, trailing atmosphere and debris. Its weapons were offline. It was helpless. His radio crackled with a new transmission, this time from the alien ship. The translation came through in broken, desperate words. "Human ship, please. We surrender. Our weapons are destroyed. We mean no harm. Please show mercy. We beg you." Jiwoo felt his stomach twist. These were defeated enemies, not threats. They were begging for their lives. Everything in his training, everything he believed about honor and warfare, told him to accept their surrender. But his orders were clear. If even one alien escaped, Earth would face a larger invasion. How many human lives would be lost then? How many cities would burn? "I'm sorry," Jiwoo whispered, though no one could hear him. He fired his last missile. The Vorath destroyer exploded silently in the darkness of space. There were no survivors. Jiwoo felt sick. He had killed before in this battle, but this felt different. This felt like murder. He turned his fighter around and headed back to the Indomitable, his hand shaking on the controls. Captain Hyejin was having similar struggles aboard her ship. Her tactical officer had located 3 Vorath cruisers trying to hide in Saturn's rings. They were broadcasting surrender signals, their shields down, their weapons powered off. "Captain, they're not fighting back," her weapons officer said. "They've given up." Hyejin stared at the screen. She thought about her brother who had died in the Mars colony wars when she was young. She remembered how that conflict had dragged on for years because Earth had shown mercy to defeated enemies, only to have them regroup and attack again. She thought about her crew, looking to her for leadership. She thought about the billions of people on Earth, trusting her to keep them safe. "Lock weapons," she ordered quietly. "Captain, they've surrendered, oh." "Lock weapons," she repeated louder this time. "That's an order." The weapons locked on. Hyejin pressed the firing button herself. The plasma railguns fired, and the 3 Vorath cruisers were destroyed in rapid succession. Her bridge crew was silent. Some looked away. Some looked at her with doubt in their eyes. Hyjin felt the judgment in their gazes, and it burned worse than any weapon ever could. "I'll carry this burden," she said softly, "so you don't have to." But she knew that was a lie. They were all carrying it now. Every crew member who followed her orders, every pilot who fired on surrendering enemies, every officer who tracked down fleeing aliens. They would all remember this day for the rest of their lives. In his command center, Admiral Dae-hyun monitored the hunt across the entire solar system. Each red dot that disappeared from his screen represented a destroyed ship, hundreds of dead aliens. The numbers climbed steadily. Dr. Bo-Ra entered the command center, her face pale with anger. "Admiral, I need to speak with you now." Dae-hyun looked up. "Dr. Bo-Ra, I'm in the middle of a—" "I know what you're in the middle of," she said sharply. "I'm watching you order the execution of defeated enemies. This isn't war. This is genocide." The room went quiet. Other officers pretended not to listen, but everyone heard. Dae-hyun stood and gestured to a private office. "Walk with me, Doctor." Inside the office, away from others, Dae-hyun's professional mask slipped. He suddenly looked old, tired, and deeply sad. "Do you think I want this?" he asked. "Do you think I enjoy ordering young people to kill surrendering enemies? Then why do it?" "Because I have to." Dae-hyun slammed his hand on the desk. "Because if one ship escapes, if one alien makes it back to their empire, they'll know where Earth is. They'll know we're strong, and they'll come back with everything they have. We could take prisoners. We could out and keep them where on Earth? Give them access to our world while we figure out how to communicate? While they learn about our defenses? While they plot escape?" Dae-hyun shook his head. "I lost my wife and daughter in the Mars colony wars, Doctor. I know what happens when you show mercy to an enemy who will use that mercy against you." Bo-Ra's anger faded slightly, replaced by understanding, though not agreement. "So we become the monsters instead?" "Yes," Dae-hyun said simply. "I will be the monster. I will be the villain in history books. I will burn in whatever hell exists, but Earth will be safe. Our children will grow up without fearing the sky. That's the trade I'm making." Bo-Ra left without another word. She understood his reasoning, but it didn't make her feel any better about the weapons she had created, the tools of mass destruction that were making this slaughter possible. Commander Tae-yang was coordinating the tracking efforts, using Earth's long-range sensors to find every fleeing Vorath ship. It was methodical work, almost mechanical. Plot trajectory, dispatch hunter team, confirm destruction, move to next target. He found the last ship hiding in the asteroid belt, powered down to minimal levels, trying to look like debris. It was clever, but not clever enough. Human sensors had been upgraded specifically to find hidden threats. "Admiral, we have the last one," Tae-yang reported. "Sending coordinates to Strike Team 5. Good work, Commander. Tell them to finish it." The last Vorath ship was a small scout vessel, barely armed, with maybe 20 crew members aboard. When the human destroyer found it, the aliens didn't even try to fight or run. They just waited, knowing their fate was sealed. The destroyer's captain tried to make it quick. A single torpedo direct hit over in an instant. It was the only mercy they could offer. When the last red dot vanished from the tactical display, Admiral Dae-hyun let out a long breath. It was done. The Vorath invasion fleet was completely destroyed. Not one ship escaped. Not one alien survived to tell the tale. "All ships stand down from battle alert," he announced. "Begin search and rescue for any human escape pods. Recover our dead. Return to Earth orbit for repairs and resupply." Throughout the fleet, the response was not celebration, but exhausted relief. They had won. They had saved Earth. But the price of that victory weighed on every soul who had fought. Lieutenant Ji-woo docked his fighter in the Indomitable's bay and climbed out slowly. His crew chief ran up to him, excited. "We did it, sir. We won." Ji-woo didn't respond. He walked past the crew chief, past the other pilots waiting to congratulate him, and went straight to his quarters. There alone, he sat on his bed and stared at his hands. These hands had killed surrendering enemies. These hands had pulled triggers on people begging for mercy. He tried to tell himself it was necessary. He tried to believe he had saved countless human lives. But all he could see were the explosions, the destroyed ships, the aliens who had wanted only to live. Captain Hyjin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at space through the main viewport. Earth was visible in the distance, a beautiful blue and white marble, safe because of what they had done. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Her tactical officer, standing nearby, didn't answer at first. Then ask me in 10 years, Captain. When children who would have died in the next invasion are grown and living their lives, maybe then we'll know. Maybe, Heejin thought. Maybe then,